Good morning on a brisk, wet morning here in Krakow, and I am in the oldest medieval market square in the world. This is dating back to the 10th century, and just over there is St Mary's Basilica, and just over there Florianska Street, where in 1241 the Mongols invaded Poland and invaded Krakow to the north and from the south, and literally burnt the whole city down, which at the time was all made of wood except one building, which I'll come to that shortly, which is that church just over there. But St Mary's Basilica, that was all burnt down, and it was rebuilt in 1257, and you will notice that one tower is taller than the other. And people say, why is that? Well, there's a myth that there was two brothers that started rebuilding the city, and they each decided to build a tower each, and they hated each other, and one got to the top and the other one was only halfway up. And he finished and he went back to their hometown, which at the time was in Lithuania, because Poland stretched all the way up to Belarus, Lithuania, Estonia and Latvia at the time. But his younger brother stayed behind and carried on building, which made a taller tower, bigger than his older brother's tower. But that was only a myth. That's just a legend, and Krakow is full of legends. But the true story is that after the Mongols invaded from the north and from the south, obviously one tower was obscuring the other one, because there was a watchman up there, the trumpeter, who would play the trumpet to warn of invaders and any fires going on. But because they didn't have a 360-degree vision of the city, they decided to put an extra bit on the top so they could have a full circle view of the city and of any future invaders. Now, it was pretty poor, the people in Krakow at the time, and at the time salt was half the value of gold, and people were being paid in salt, because many thousands of years ago the sea came right up to here, Krakow, and over the centuries it dispersed all the way back to the English Channel and left behind vast amounts of salt. That's why in this part of Europe you'll find loads and loads of salt mines, and there's a big salt mine just outside of Krakow here. But they were paid in salt, and you will see this is where the term salary comes from. The salary, salt. This is why we advertise this as money. It's salt. They were paid in salt. And this cloth hall, this was very famous and popular with textile industries, salt, gold, jewellery and everything. It's built in an Italian Renaissance style building, vastly different to the rest of the buildings around, if you notice. Look, very much different. But here, hanging up at the entrance to the cloth hall, you will find a knife just hanging up. See? Just there. See that knife? Now that knife was acting as a deterrent against thieves, because obviously it was half the value of gold and people would come and steal the salt. So to stop them, I had that knife advertised there, and if you stole salt, you'd have your fingers chopped off or your ears chopped off, the two attributes that you require mainly in life. When the Mongols eventually left, there was nothing left of Krakow at all, and it was slowly rebuilt in stone, whereas before, as I say, it was made of wood, apart from that church over there, which I'll show you in a second. But they rebuilt in stone and brick, and in 1257 Krakow became the capital of Poland and remained the capital for 500 years until it was taken over by Warsaw. And why Warsaw? Well, because at the time, as I say before, Poland existed all the way up to Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. Instead of kings and people travelling all over, all the way down to Krakow in the south, they decided, well, we can't have one right up north, let's have one in the middle. But at the time, Warsaw was just a tiny little village, and over time people would come from the south, people would come from the north, and they would meet in the middle. And as time went on, obviously Warsaw grew and grew and grew, and eventually took over as the capital of Poland. And then obviously when Hitler invaded Poland when Hitler invaded Poland in 1939 on the 1st of September, a few weeks later Warsaw was destroyed and it was burnt to the ground again. So it had to be rebuilt after the war, and it still remained the capital. So we'll just go over there and I'll show you that church. And that's it. Oh, just the earliest, underneath this cloth hall, see this? I don't know if you can see. There's a triangular glass roof there. Let's see. That underneath here is an underground city, which I'll try to get into later. There is a daily waiting list to go in there because it is a World Heritage Site and very protective. And it's the oldest recorded reports of Krakow's existence from the 9th century, from 800 AD. And so you can go in there now, have a look, and it's still preserved. Because over the years, obviously, people had no way of getting rid of the rubbish. They throw the rubbish on the floor, out on the street, covered it with sand, thrown it on the street, covered it with sand. And over time, obviously, Krakow was much, much lower in the ground than it is today, and it slowly lifted up and lifted up and lifted up. So there is still an existence of a city underneath this city. So we'll try and have a look later, but I want to show you over there shortly. So let's go over there. Now I've just come here down to this church here. Beautiful small church. But as I said before the Mongols arrived, back in the day the whole city was built of wood. And when it was burnt down, a lot of the priests hid in this church. This was the only one that was made of stone. They hid in this church underground. And when it all burnt down, it was rebuilt. And you'll see this section of the wall, this original section of the wall, this stone is the only part of the old city that remains above ground. The rest of it was built as it was around it, but they kept this original stone wall. And all around here, around the whole square, you'll see bars, restaurants, souvenir shops. Welcome to come here and sit and have your coffee. But if you're willing to pay €5, €6 or dollars for a coffee, you're quite welcome to. But it is a major tourist trap. So we're going to go around to the other side of the cloth hall, and I will show you. We'll have a walk through the cloth hall, and I'll show you what it's like. It's on a smaller scale to the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul. So let's go and have a look round. There's nothing open at the moment because it's still only about 7:45 in the morning. Yeah, it's closed. So the gates are still closed. You see all the shops around there. It's mainly literally all jewellery shops in there now. All silver sellers everywhere. So this is another thing I wanted to show you around here. I'm trying my best on this history lesson. Done a bit of research. Right, And on this magnificent building and medieval market square, we have Costa Coffee and a horrible sign, what they call the Golden Arches. Bloody McDonald's. Just ruins it, really. Look. So we come to the other side of the square. So we have that side and we got this side. So it is the biggest medieval square in Europe. And in 1316, on this side, we had the town hall. See, here's the tower. The town hall stretched all the way along right to the end. Some huge building. And when the Austrians came in the 19th century, they wanted to create an even more open space for crowds to gather, preachings or even protests even. And they decided, well, let's create more space. Let's get rid of one end of the town hall. So they decided to set fire and demolish one part of it. But what they didn't realise was, once they did that, the whole building collapsed. Everything collapsed, and the only thing that remained was this tower. The tower was the only one that was left standing. And you can go up there, you can go right to the top. It's about 236 steps up. And here you'll see a statue of a head. This guy, he was responsible for the demolition of the tower, of the town hall. And they put his statue here, and the locals went in uproar. I didn't want it here. I left it here. Well, what should we do with him? And over the years, it was just left here and left here. And eventually, I just thought, well, let's just leave it here. So that's why it's here. I just left it here. But this guy was responsible. What was his name? Here's his name here. Igor Mitrovic Eros Bandata. That was his name. Yep. There's a little bit of history here for you. So let's move on. Oh, there's something else I want to show you. A couple of other things actually I want to show you. Right, let's move on. Right, we just come round to the corner from the square to this building here. And this building is the oldest university in Poland. It may be the oldest in Europe, I'm not sure. But it's definitely the oldest in Poland. You can go in and have a look. The door is open. Let's go in and have a look. Creep in. It's a beautiful building. Look at this. Have to be sort of quiet around here. There is a coffee shop here, you can sit down here. You can see in each corner the drain pipes, all from like modelled on dragons. See? And up here this clock here puts on a little show every 2 hours. So people sit there, have their coffee, look up at the show every 2 hours. Yes, it's very beautiful in here, very beautiful. So we've just come down from the university, which is just there, to this building just here. And during the war, Second World War, the Germans came here and closed all the universities down, closed everything down. But there were still some people come here and go in that building and teach, lecture their teachings in private. And when the war ended in 1945, a certain young man came here and knocked on this door here, and wanted to learn about becoming a priest, learn the teachings, and to be a lecturer. Sorry about the noise in the background, the jackhammer. There's roadworks all over the place here. But the young man here who came to knock on the door, he would later become very popular with the local people, and word spread all the way to the Vatican City. And a number of years later, about 20 years later, the Vatican City contacted him and invited him up to Italy. And this young man would later become Pope John Paul II. And as you would know, he's the most famous Pope in history, and he was the first non-Italian Pope for 500 years. So we're just going to go around the corner now here, and I'll show you where Pope John Paul II lived and later studied, and also later preached to local people before he became Pope. Right, I've just come to this garden area here. We've just come from the university, walked through this park to here, and it's this building here I want to show you. There's Pope John Paul II. During his studies, this is where he lived and studied. And this window just here, you can see his picture. I'll see if I can get a little bit closer. You can see Pope John Paul II. And every Sunday, he used to open that window and preach to a small gathering of people. Probably about 1,000 people gathered in this park. And he would preach the sermons of Catholicism to them. Typical. Goddamn tram gets in the way. So there's himself, Pope John Paul, and that's the actual window where he lived. And he'd open that and preach to everyone here. And later on when he became Pope, his first visit to Krakow after he became Pope was in 1979. And he held sermons just down the road there, and it was gathered by over 3 million people gathered. It was enormous, absolutely huge. I've never seen anything like it in this city. And yeah, as I say, he became the most popular Pope in history. And beautiful little church here. It's not open yet, obviously, because it's too early, but you can go inside. Now we're going to go, see just there, we're going to go to Wawel Castle, and I will show you some findings I've discovered there as well. Okay, we've come down now to Wawel Castle, and you will see that just there, that's the Royal Cathedral. See, with my fingers pointing. I'm going to go up there. A couple of things I want to talk to you about up there. But during the 18th and 19th centuries, the Austro-Hungarians ruled Krakow for 123 years. And as you walk up this slope, you'll see all these plaques on the wall here. And you will think, what do these plaques represent? They're all the names, because the Austro-Hungarians would not put any money into the restoration of this building or this castle, and over the years it deteriorated and it started crumbling. And all these plaques are the names of all the people, local people and people from all around Poland, who donated money for the restoration of the castle. And that's a good sign to how the Polish people like to help their own people. It's a shame similar situations don't happen in this day and age. So we'll get up this slope. It's quite steep if I don't get out of breath. Oh. Right, see you at the top of the cathedral. So here we are at the Royal Cathedral. As you can see, beautiful building. There's one thing I wanted to show you here. If you look in here, just up the steps, you will see some huge bones here. And legend has it that these bones were from a dragon that lived here underground of the castle for thousands of years. And legend has it, if those bones ever fell down, then Krakow would fall. But luckily, in the year 2025, it's still there. It hasn't fallen down yet. But another interesting, but maybe useless fact, but it's all part of the legend of Krakow. It's full of legends. Some of them true, some of them fake, but they all have a story attached to them. Right, where do I want to go now? I'm going to go through here and see this, well, magnificent palace, which now lies empty. I'll tell you about a little bit about that when we get there. So we're just coming through this double archway here. You emerge into this, well, it can only be regarded as a city within a city. And look at this. This was the royal residence many hundreds of years ago. Look at that. It's beautiful. And they employed servants as well. And story has it, normally the royals would live at the top, but here the royals lived on the middle floor and the servants up at the top. The reason why? Because when the sun shone in here, the sun would only shine on the middle section of the palace. So the royals thought, we're going to have the middle section. So this is why the royals were in the middle and not the top, as you would expect. And obviously the German army came here when they invaded Krakow and took it all over. It was used as a semi-headquarters of Poland, but in 1945 it was shut down, and the last recorded resident here was the evil German officer Hans Frank, and the place has been empty ever since, but it's been constantly kept upkeep, and look how beautiful it is. So if I head down here, one final thing I want to show you down here before we move on. Right, we've just come out the Royal Palace and we come down here to the river, which is down here. And one particular legend is, if you look down there, see there's a dragon. It's a real fire breathing dragon. It's not a real dragon, but it's real fire breathing out of its mouth. And again, a legend story. Legend has it, as I said before, the sea came right into here many thousands of years ago, and this Wawel castle and hill, it was actually on an island. It was an island of itself, and as the water retreated all the way back to the English Channel, they dug down underneath and they found these huge bones of an animal. They didn't know what it was, and they came up with the idea it must have been a dragon, which caused the fire which later burnt the city down. But it wasn't actually a dragon. It was later discovered that it was a whale. Yes. And people say, well, a whale? What's a whale doing right inland here? As I say, obviously because the sea was right in here many thousands of years ago. So I can walk down there. I think it's about a 10-minute walk to get down there. I should go down there and show you the dragon and see if I can see any fire coming out while I'm there. I'll just come down to the dragon here, but I did come out early enough to record this video to avoid any crowds, but unfortunately some of them have beaten me to it. So it's unfortunate, but we'll see what we can capture. This is the famous legendary dragon. So I don't know what time the fire breathing starts, but there we go. Oh, just caught the last glimpses of it. That was it. 10 seconds it lasted, not even that. Right, I'm going to take you off and finish off in one particular place, which I probably should have started the video at. But anyway, I'm going to finish there. So, catch you in a second. Okay, we're going to sort of end here. When the Mongols came and invaded the city of Krakow and destroyed it, later on in the 14th and 15th century, they erected this barbican here, and there was most barbicans have two entrances, one there and one here, but to stop any further invading parties who in them days were using battering rams to get into cities, they put an entrance here. So one entrance here, then they would have to at right angles reorganize a battering ram to come through this entrance, at which time the defenders were up in these little towers here shooting arrows, and they would kill them all. Obviously it wasn't invaded again after that. And just here there was in the late 15th century a wall that was erected all the way around the city to protect it from further invaders. And you will see here, see this path here, all the way along here on both sides. This is where there was a drawbridge erected, and this park, there was a 20-metre moat surrounding the whole city. And when the Austro-Hungarians came and ruled the city, they decided to pull down the wall, fill all this in and create a nice open space park. Got rid of the drawbridge, and they were tearing down the wall, and the locals were horrified that their beautiful wall, that protective, was being destroyed. They weren't listening, they were destroying it. And then one person went to the head of the Austro-Hungarian government, who were here at the time, and said, look, these walls protect us, especially from the brutal winters that we have, which come from the north. They come tearing down here through the archway all the way down Florianska Street to the market square, and everyone would freeze to death. Now these walls would protect us from those brutal winters. And the Austro-Hungarian government thought, oh, hang on, he might actually have an idea. So then they just, out of nowhere, they just immediately stopped destroying the wall. And this is all that's left. It's like a 200-metre section of the wall remains of the city. And with legends and myths around Krakow, that particular story is very true. Right, I'm going to finish with one final story right here. This is the art museum, and most of you know the most famous painting in the world is, most famous portrait in the world is of the Mona Lisa, which is held in Paris. But Leonardo da Vinci painted one more portrait of a woman, and I'll show you a picture of that portrait in just a second. And that portrait is housed here in this museum, and you can go in and look at it. So that is another fact for you. Leonardo da Vinci painted two portraits of a woman, one of the Mona Lisa and the other of another young lady I don't know the name of, but that particular portrait is housed right here in this museum. So after that, someone's just told me you can see a photograph of that particular picture of Leonardo, and here it is. See that lady there? You can see it with the light shining. That is the only other picture of Leonardo da Vinci's portrait, which is housed in that museum up the road. So I'm going to leave it here. I hope you enjoyed that history tour of Krakow. There's a lot more to say and see around here, but in this short video I just thought I'd give you an outline of the history of this beautiful city which you have to come and see. It's my 4th visit here. I will try and get into the underground city and show you that, but I've got another video coming out next time which I've done a heck of a lot of research on, and you will hopefully enjoy that one. So until next time, I'll say ciao for now and see you later.